you have a proposal that you talked about in your presentation yesterday, and I wonder if you would articulate that for our viewer audience in that regard.
Yes, it's been apparent to anybody in this field that in the last 10, 20 years, because of the influence of Saudi money being poured into Western universities, there's a report by Professor Anthony Glees of Buckingham University in England, which looked at the funding, Saudi funding of British universities. And they looked at 8 universities, and they discovered, this includes Oxford and Cambridge, that $233.5 million had been poured into this. Now, it comes with strings attached.
Right.
You cannot pretend that it doesn't. And the Saudis oversee what is being taught. And I know at least one scholar, Dennis McKeown, who was thrown out of his university because he was teaching Islamic studies, Islamic history in a very critical way. He got thrown out. He was pressured. The university was pressured by the Saudis to have him thrown out, and he was. So, in other words, now you cannot. And the other factor, which has didn't have time to discuss last night, is that in the 1970s, around about the 1970s, probably started, certainly gathering momentum towards the 1980s. A Western university in the United States, in the interest of diversity, and under the false assumption that only Muslims can teach about Islam, went about recruiting Muslim scholars. Now, some of them are very competent, and they deserve their posts, but an incredible number are incompetent. They have, even their grasp of Arabic, classical Arabic, is pretty shaky, but they've been tenured, and these scholars are intimidating the various Islamic departments in Western universities, and I have examples, into following a very orthodox Islamic Saudi line when teaching about the Quran. So any critical look at the Quran is discouraged. And I know one example, I better not mention the university concerned. One university had one scholar of Arabic origin who was very interested in the work of a German scholar called Christoph Luxemburg, who has impressed a lot of people. He wrote a book in the year 2000 in which he argues, for example, this is the most sensational part of it, is that there's been mistranslation of the words in the Quran which are usually translated as virgins. They in fact should be translated as raisins. Right. So martyrs in the cause of Islam can expect 72 raisins awaiting them in heaven. This scholar, the one colleague, wanted to invite Christoph Luxemburg to his university to discuss these new ideas, but the tenured Muslim scholar threatened. He actually said, I will make sure that this man is never invited, because I will then, if you do, I will go around to all the local mosques and whip up sort of
frenzy,
kind of, yes,
wow,
anti-Luxembourg. There would be anti-Luxembourg rallies or whatever. So this is blatant, blackmail. And because the Islamic departments are so reluctant to the heads of these departments are so reluctant to take a stance to defend academic freedom. They don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to offend Muslims. They don't want any kind of public outcry. They don't want to be, in the public eye. So they give in. In other words, academic freedom is really threatened in these universities.
So you, to characterize your exclamation point in your proposal from last night, you're talking about something equivalent to the Cold War era RAND Corporation, which was independent of the universities but funded by the government, to deal with what? Quranic criticism?
Yes, I think we have to look at it as a new Cold War, but there would be... You have to look at the ideology. We're fighting an idea. We have to confront the ideology of the terrorists. And I think one of the reasons I mentioned Spinoza was that this would be another way of bringing about an enlightenment in the Islamic world, is by making them look at the Quran in a critical way. I mean, it sounds a very tall order, but we need to translate the work of these scholars, in much of their work is in German or in French, into Arabic, into Persian, into Urdu, and into Indonesian languages. Because they've never been exposed to any kind of critical look at their holy book.
Is it a holy book by name, or is it something called the genuine or generous Koran?
The generous
Koran.
Otherwise, generous Koran. It's usually known as the glorious Koran.
Well, Ibn, I want to thank you very much for this interview today.
Okay.
It's most prescient and most appreciated.
Thank you.
Okay.
Recently, there was an article in the New York Times. The Koran scholar said the actual translation is not 71 dark-haired virgins, but 71 crystal clear raisins. Slight difference in interpretation, really? That's very strange. Like finding out thou shalt not kill is thou shalt not wear a kilt. No! And imagine some guy blows himself up, goes to the gates of heaven saying, "Where are my bitches? Here are your raisins." Well, one day we get Osama bin Laden, he goes to the gates of heaven. There's George Washington waiting, going, "How dare you defile that which we created," and starts wailing on his ass. 70 other members of the Continental Congress come down and start kicking out of him. And then he's going, "What is this? Where are the virgins?" 71 Virginians, you asshole! I must talk to Jesus Christ! Where is Jesus Christ?